My dad ended up plowing the heck out of me on vacation. A few months ago, my dad told me that my husband, his son-in-law, was cheating on me. I found it hard to believe. After all, we had been married for 30 years. My dad showed me pictures of the messages his dad had sent to another woman. I didn't question how he got those photos, but I couldn't deny that something was going on. I confronted my husband later that day, and he confessed to having an affair. He moved out, I filed for divorce, and I went through a difficult few weeks. I didn't know how to move forward. It was totally unexpected, but he had to take care of his own family. My dad visited me almost every day, and that was very comforting. After about a month, I was feeling better and my dad suggested we go on vacation together. He had seen last-minute offers on TV and I was happy to join him. So, he planned everything. I was completely convinced that we would go with his family, but when he picked me up on the day we were leaving, it turned out it was just going to be the two of us. It didn't bother me too much, but I found it a bit strange when we arrived. He had only booked one room, and even though I couldn't complain since he paid for the whole trip, it seemed odd again. But I was there to have fun, so I didn't push it. The next few days were fantastic. He had booked several activities like diving, salsa dancing, and a helicopter ride. And in between, we relaxed by the pool and had some drinks. I made sure to tell him how much fun I was having and how much I appreciated it. He just hugged me and said he wanted to see me happy for one night. The hotel organized a salsa night and part of it was a small competition among the guests. Since we had taken lessons earlier, I said we had to compete, so we did. Now, my dad isn't the best dancer and neither am I, but he's great at entertaining people, so by exaggerating all his moves, he managed to win over the crowd, and we ended up in second place. I was laughing more than I was dancing. It was so much fun. After the competition, we kept dancing for hours, and I probably had a bit too much to drink. We held hands as we walked back to our room, and after changing, we got into bed. Normally, we would each stay on our own side, wish each other good night, and go to sleep. But that night, he moved over to my side, hugged me from behind, and started smiling. I didn't expect what he was about to say. That night, as my dad hugged me, something was definitely off. The intensity of his touch, the warmth of his presence, it felt as though he was carrying a secret too heavy to keep. At first, I attributed it to the stress of our family situation. The recent divorce, my husband's betrayal, and the way my dad had been forced to grow up too quickly to support me. But as he got closer, I sensed there was something more. Something he wanted to tell me, but seemed hesitant. "You know, my daughter," he began with a voice that wasn't his usual one. It was more serious, almost melancholic. "There are things about Dad that you don't know. Things he did, and that I've kept to myself for a long time." I stared at him confused. "What do you mean?" He took a deep breath, looking away as if trying to find the right words. "The betrayal wasn't the worst thing he did. I found out something long before that, something that changed everything for me and that I kept secret to protect you." The room seemed to shrink around me. I felt my heart race, fearing what would come next. "What did you discover?" I asked, my voice low, almost a whisper. He looked at me. His eyes filled with a pain I had never seen before. "Do you remember when I was 4 and I disappeared in that park?" Immediately, the blood drained from my face. Of course, I remembered. Those days were the worst of my life. He vanished out of nowhere and was only found days later, disoriented and without memory. The relief of having him back was so overwhelming that I never questioned the story. "I wasn't kidnapped by a stranger, baby," he said, his voice trembling. "It was Dad." The shock hit me like a punch. I wanted to say it was impossible, that he was confused. My husband, the man I thought I knew so well, but he continued, not giving me time to absorb the revelation. "He took me to a house outside the city. He said it was a game that I couldn't tell anyone. He kept me there for days, and when he brought me back, he made me promise I'd forget everything. And for all these years, I tried. I really tried to forget baby, but I never could." I felt the ground collapse beneath my feet. It was as if the reality I knew was being torn to pieces. But why? Why would he do that? My dad lowered his head, clearly struggling with the memories. "He was involved in terrible things, Lisa. He was a dangerous man, far more than you ever imagined. He took advantage of people. People disappeared because of him. I was just a kid, but I saw things a child should never see." My mind was spinning. It couldn't be true. But at the same time, my husband's strange behavior over the years, the constant late-night outings, the long periods when he seemed distant, all of it started to make horrible sense. "You're saying that your father was a criminal?" I asked, my voice trembling, hoping I had somehow misunderstood. He nodded. His eyes filled with pain. Not just that, he was a serial killer. My entire body froze. That phrase echoed through my mind like thunder. What? I managed to murmur. During those days I stayed with him, he would take me to places. I saw him hurt people. He never let me get close, but I knew what was happening. I knew something terrible was going on. He said he was doing it for justice, that he was cleaning the world of bad people. I was too young to fully understand, but it scarred me in a way I couldn't erase. I backed away trying to process it. My mind couldn't keep up. My husband? A serial killer? How could I have lived next to a monster for so many years without realizing it? But why didn't you ever tell me before? Why did you keep this secret? I asked, my voice cracking. He said that if I told you, he'd come after you. He said you'd never believe me and that I'd lose you forever. So, I stayed quiet. All these years, I pretended everything was fine, that I had forgotten. But when I saw the messages, when I knew he was cheating on you, I realized that was my chance to get him out of our lives for good. My heart was shattered. My dad had carried this burden alone for all these years, trapped in a cycle of fear and silence. And now, as he told me the truth, something else struck me. You said, he took the victims to places. Where did he take them? I asked, fearing the answer. He hesitated for a moment, his eyes filling with tears. He took them to a shed, far outside the city. That's where I saw everything. I felt nauseous, the panic beginning to set in. We need to tell the police immediately. My dad stood up quickly, gripping my arms, but this time, something in his expression was different. A cold determination, a calculated certainty. He didn't seem to be trying to calm me down, but rather preparing me for the next revelation. Listen, Lisa, he won't hurt us anymore. I have proof of everything. I took secret photos. My mind froze for a second, trying to process what he had just said. Proof? What proof, Dad? On those nights when he went out to do what he did, I followed him, Mom. I followed to the shed where he took the people. I waited for hours until he started his activities. And, when he was there, in the middle of it all, I took pictures. I captured everything, the victims, the shed itself, and most importantly, him. My eyes widened. It was hard to imagine my dad, still so determined, following his criminal son-in-law into such a dark and dangerous place, all to gather evidence. You have photos of him there? Of what he did? He nodded, his expression serious. Yes. I took pictures of everything. I hid far enough so that he couldn't see me, but close enough to record every detail. I have everything we need to incriminate him. The relief I felt, knowing he hadn't done anything drastic like killing him, was immediately replaced by another concern. But what now? What did you do with that evidence? That's when he revealed what he had planned from the beginning. I confronted him. I went to him with the photos. I showed him everything. I told him that if he came near me or you again, or if he tried anything, I would turn all the evidence over to the police. I threatened to expose everything, his crimes, the shed, the victims. He knows that if he tries anything, it's over for him. A mix of fear and relief rose within me. And what did he say? Did he believe you? He had no choice, Lisa. I showed him the pictures. He tried to intimidate me, tried to turn the situation around like he always does, but I was ready. I told him that if he made any move, I'd release everything to the press and the police. There's no way out for him. He knows he's trapped. My heart pounded in my chest. It was hard to imagine my dad confronting that cold man, the manipulator, who always seemed to be in control. Are you sure he'll keep his distance? Yes, he replied, his voice firm. I told him that if he even thought about revenge, his life would be ruined. And, he believed me because he knows I'm not bluffing. Now, it all made sense. My ex-husband's distant attitude during the divorce, his decision to leave without a fight. He knew my dad had something on him that could end everything. And, that explained why. Even after all this, he had stayed away without trying to interfere. I just wanted to protect you, Lisa, he said, his eyes filled with the pain he had probably carried for a long time. I knew he was going too far. I knew that, sooner or later, he'd come after us in an even worse way. So, I did what I could to make sure we'd never have to live in fear of him again. I moved closer to my dad and hugged him, the tears finally falling. The sense of security I never knew I needed now felt more real than ever. He had done what was necessary, protecting our family from the man I had never truly known. You're so brave, I whispered, holding him tightly. I could never imagine going through something like this, but now we're free. He sighed, Relieved. Yes, Lisa. We're free, at least for now. That phrase echoed in my mind. Although my ex-husband was far away, and the evidence my dad had against him ensured that he wouldn't try anything, we knew that the threat, however distant, still loomed over us. But now, at least, we had something we'd never had before: control over our own lives. And most importantly, we were finally safe. I knew it would be a long road to process everything that had happened. But in that moment, with my dad by my side, I felt like we could overcome anything. After all, together, we had defeated the most dangerous monster we'd ever known. A few years had passed since my son, and I went through that terrible revelation. Life finally seemed to settle into a rhythm of normalcy. However, the peace we thought we had gained was an illusion. The first sign that something was wrong came on an ordinary day when I discovered that the photos of my ex-husband, the incriminating evidence my dad had gathered, had been leaked. The sense of betrayal and helplessness was immediate. The images began circulating online, and the outside world grew restless, as if the monster from the past was returning to haunt us once again. My dad disappeared without a trace shortly after the leak. There were no words, no note, nothing. His disappearance left me devastated and terrified. I knew he was in danger, that perhaps his son-in-law, even while imprisoned, could still have allies or a way to seek revenge. With the leak of the photos, my life descended into chaos. The media, the police, and even strangers started searching for me, flooding my life with questions and speculation. The protection my son had ensured, the security I had felt for all this time, was now in ruins. I was forced to live in anonymity, moving from city to city, changing my identity. The fear of being discovered and the anguish of not knowing where my dad was became my constant companions. Each day was a battle. The constant stress and the guilt of not being able to protect my dad began to consume my sanity. With every new false lead or sighting report that led to nothing, my hope diminished. Time seemed to drag on in a haze of despair. But then one day, after months of anguish and near resignation, something unexpected happened. I received a message on my phone from an unknown number. My mind was so exhausted that I hesitated before opening it, fearing yet another false hope. When I finally opened it, what I read left me paralyzed. The message said, "I love you, Lisa. You're safe. Son-in-law is in prison." It was as if time stopped for a moment. The words echoed in my mind as tears of relief and confusion streamed down my face. The message was brief, but enough to unleash a whirlwind of emotions. "Oh my God," I murmured to myself, trying to process the news. My heart raced with relief and disbelief battling for my attention. I contacted the police, and after a period of intense scrutiny and verification, the truth came to light. My dad was safe, hidden in a protected location. Somehow, he had managed to secure a place where he was safe from surveillance and the dangers he faced. He sent me the message to reassure me and inform me that his son-in-law's arrest was imminent and that he was already behind bars. Knowing that my dad was okay and that the threat was finally being neutralized brought a wave of relief mixed with sadness. There was much to recover, both in terms of our relationship and the life that had been upended. In the months that followed, I began to rebuild my life, slowly and carefully. Psychological support and new identities helped us cope with the trauma. Reuniting with my dad and rebuilding our bond was a painful journey, but also deeply rewarding. I found myself smiling again, knowing that despite everything, life had a way of healing. The truth was, we could never erase the past, but we could learn from it and move forward. My dad and I, together, faced fear and pain. And now, although the road to recovery was long, we knew that together, we could find a new way to live, a new hope for the future.